Hi, you guys. This is chapter 13 of Life as We Knew It. It's getting intense, people. Okay, here we go. Matt and Johnny were at Mrs. Nesbitt's this morning getting her house ready for winter. She refuses to move in with us. When I came home for brunch, I'd just taken out a can of peas and carrots when I heard a thud and Mom cry out. I ran to the living room and there was Mom sprawled out on the floor. I tripped, she said. I'm such an idiot. I tripped. Are you okay? I asked. She shook her head. My ankle, she said. I don't think I can stand on it. Stay where you are, I said, like she had a choice. I'll get Peter. I ran to the garage and got my bike. I've never biked as fast as I did to the hospital. But when I got there, they wouldn't let me in. Even when I explained there had been an accident and we were friends with Peter, all the guard would do was take my message. I stood outside waiting. The house is so cold, we all wear extra layers and jackets. But I'd been in such a hurry, I hadn't thought to put on my winter coat or gloves or a scarf. I'd worked up a sweat biking so fast, and that didn't help any. The guard didn't seem to be in any hurry to take my message to Peter. First, he made me write it out, and then he read it, and then he demanded I show him some ID, which, of course, I didn't have on me. I begged him to take the message to Peter. He grinned. I could tell he was used to people begging him for things, and he liked it. I felt the same kind of nauseous sick I'd felt from the chocolate chips. I stood there begging and crying and wanting to kill him. So help me, if I could have gotten my hands on his gun, I would have shot him and anybody else who tried to keep me from getting help for Mom. The guard stood there and laughed. And then a second guard came by and asked what was going on. I told him, but he didn't laugh. He did say there was nothing they could do to help. This is a hospital, he said. The doctors don't make house calls. First guard thought that was a riot. Just let me get the message to Dr. Elliott, I said. That's all I'm asking. We can't leave our post to bring someone a message, the second guard said. Your best bet is to wait here, and if someone you know comes out, maybe you can get him to take the message in. Please, I begged. Please, my mother is lying alone, hurt. Please don't make me wait here any longer. Sorry, miss, the second guard said. We have our rules too. The first guard just kept grinning. So I stood there. People left the hospital, but none of them was willing to go back and bring Peter my note. They all pretended not to see me, like I was a beggar on the street and they didn't want to have to give me money or feel guilty because they hadn't. I stood for as long as I could, and then I sat down on the frozen ground. The first guard walked over to me and gave me a little nudge with his shoe. No loitering, he said. Stand or go. Sorry, miss, the second guard said. Rules. I kept thinking of Mom, wondering if I should go back home. It was so hard to tell how much time had elapsed. It felt like hours, but I had no way of knowing. Johnny had probably gone back to the house. Mom had given him orders not to eat any of Mrs. Nesbitt's food, so he probably came home for lunch. At least that's what I told myself. I couldn't bear the thought of going home without Peter, and I couldn't bear the thought of Mom all alone on the living room floor. I told myself Johnny had gone home and brought Mom some blankets and helped her off the floor, and everything was okay. I hadn't eaten since supper the night before, and I started feeling woozy. I felt myself kind of floating onto the ground. I don't think I really lost consciousness because I remember the second guard coming over and lifting me up. Don't do that, miss, he said. It won't do you any good. I think I thanked him. I went back to standing and willed myself not to faint, not to cry. I asked more people who came out to help me. No one paid any attention. The first guard said something about getting something to eat. He sauntered off, like going for a meal was the most normal thing in the world to do. I thought maybe the second guard would take pity on me and let me in, but he just stood there and refused to look at me. And then Matt showed up. Mom is worried sick, he said. What's going on here? Matt, the second guard said. Mr. James, Matt said. I didn't realize this was your sister, the guard said. Go in, hurry. I could get in a lot of trouble if Dwayne finds out what I did. Matt raced into the hospital. Wayne came back while Matt was still in the hospital. "You still here?" he said. I ignored him. After a few minutes, Matt and Peter came outside. "We'll take my car," Peter said. "I have a bike rack." It was all I could do not to burst into tears. At that moment, I realized I no longer had the strength to bike home. The drive took maybe 10 minutes. I was too exhausted and sick and worried to enjoy the sensation of being in a car. Matt explained that Johnny had gone home around 1, and when he found Mom on the floor, he was more worried. She was more worried about me than about herself. She was pretty sure nothing was broken, but she couldn't stand, and Johnny wasn't strong enough to help her get up. She sent Johnny to Mrs. Nesbitt to get Matt, and he came home and carried Mom to the sunroom and started a fire. And then he biked over to the hospital to find me. I'd been standing outside for about 3 hours. Peter didn't even try to apologize for the guards. He said there had been incidents and conditions at the hospital were bad enough without people breaking in. I know he might be right, but I didn't want to hear it. And even though it was crazy of me, it made me mad that Matt could get in because the guard knew him, and I couldn't because the guard didn't know me. I told myself to be grateful the guard knew Matt, but the last thing I was feeling was gratitude. Peter pulled into the driveway and went right into the sunroom. Matt and I unloaded our bikes from the rack. "Are you okay?" Matt asked me. "Did the guards give you a hard time?" "I'm fine," I said. But the truth was, I longed to take a hot shower and wash the whole experience away. All I could think of was how much pleasure Dwayne had gotten out of my misery. I still would have killed him if I had the chance. And I'm sorry, I don't think she would have, you guys. I know that that's something that people say and that people shouldn't say. But, and you know, this is hard times for all these people, but yeah, anyway. But I didn't tell Matt any of that. He didn't need to hear it. We went inside and found Peter examining Mom's ankle. "A bad sprain," he said, "but nothing's broken. She won't need a cast." He pulled an ace bandage out of his doctor's bag and wrapped up her ankle tightly. "Don't even think about stairs for a week," he said. "Stay in here. Matt, you and I'll bring your mother's mattress down here. Laura, you can get up to eat and go to the bathroom, but nothing more. Keep your foot propped up when you're sitting. Put as little weight on it as possible. I don't suppose you have a cane?" "There's one in the attic," Mom said. "I'll get it," Johnny said. He grabbed a flashlight and flew up the stairs. While he was gone, Peter pulled out some surgical masks and handed them to us. "Air quality," he said, almost apologetically. "We're seeing a lot of asthma cases these days. You might want to wear one of these whenever you do anything outside." "Thank you," Mom said. "Matt, wear one when you chop wood. Do you understand?" "Yes, Mom," Matt said. He quickly put one on. "Mom always wanted me to be a doctor," he said, and we all pretended to laugh. Johnny came down with a cane. Peter inspected it and declared it acceptable. Mom wasn't to walk anywhere without it for the next 10 days. She wasn't even to think about leaving the house for 2 weeks. He tried to get over once or twice to check on her in the meantime. And then he and Matt went upstairs and lugged Mom's mattress down. I brought her sheets and blankets and pillows. Johnny shoved the furniture around so there would be room for the mattress. With the wood stove giving off heat and light, the sunroom looked almost cheerful. "I feel like such a fool," Mom said. "I'm putting everyone to so much bother. And Peter, I know how busy you are. I can't thank you enough for coming over." "Oh, Laura," Peter said, and he took her hand. I realized if things had been normal, if none of this insanity had happened, he and Mom would have been going out for the past 4 months. Regular, normal going out, and Mom would have been happy. Mom asked Peter if he could stay for supper, but Peter said he had to go back to the hospital. They were all on crazy schedules, 16 hours on, 8 hours off. Because the staff was no longer at full strength, he really couldn't take any more time off. "But I'll be back," he promised. I'll be back, he said. "I promise, and I want you to promise you'll stay off that foot and let the ankle heal on its own. There's no reason for you to limp any longer than necessary." "I promise," Mom said. Peter went down and kissed her, and then he left, and we could hear the sound of his car. Such a funny sound. I am so sorry, Mom said to us. I know this is going to be a terrible bother for all of you. Don't worry about it, Matt said. We just want you to follow Peter's instructions and get better. I'll take care of suppers, I said. Don't worry about that, Mom. Well, I'm not worried about anything, Mom said. I know you'll all do whatever has to be done. I just wish I could help you. I know I'm going to have to be strong for the next couple of weeks. No more whining, no more picking fights. I'll have to do whatever Mom asks me and not protest and not complain. I know I can do it. But for that one moment, I felt so weak, so helpless. I felt nothing but fear and despair and the most awful need to be anyplace else. I told myself it was hunger, but I knew that was a lie. As long as Mom was all right, I could fool myself into thinking we'd be all right. But even though I knew Mom could have fallen any time and sprained her ankle any time, this felt as though it was the beginning of the end. So while Matt and Johnny were busying themselves getting Mom set up, I slipped upstairs to my bedroom and wrote all this down. All the things I could never tell any of them. I thought of Dad and how I may never see him again. I thought of Lisa and wondered if she and the baby would be all right, if I'd ever get to know if I had a new sister or brother. I thought of Grandma and wondered if she was still alive. I cried and I pounded on my pillow, pretending it was Dwayne. And when I calmed down, I wrote. And now I'll go downstairs and make supper and pretend everything is just fine. Mom was looking lonely in the sunroom this afternoon, so I decided to keep her company. She was sitting on the couch with her foot propped up, and I sat down next to her. I want to thank you, she said, and tell you how proud I am of you. Of me? I said. The way you raced out of here when I fell? She said. I know you've been reluctant to go any place on your own, but you didn't hesitate for a moment. And standing there all that time, I'm very grateful and I'm very proud. I wish I could have done more, I said. I felt awful leaving you that way. It never occurred to me they wouldn't let me in. Mom reached over and began stroking my hair. You're so beautiful, she said. The past few months have been so awful, and you've been very brave. I've been at fault not telling you that. I'm so proud to be your mother. I didn't know what to say. I thought about all the fights I'd provoked over the past few months. We'll get through, Mom said. We have each other and we'll survive. I know we will, I said. Mom sighed. You know what I miss most? She asked, and then she laughed. At least today. It changes every day. No? What? I asked. Clean hair, she said. Daily showers and clean hair. My hair is such a mess. I really hate it. It's okay, I said. It's no worse than mine. Let's cut it, she said. Miranda, get a pair of scissors and cut my hair. Come on, do it now. Do it right now. Are you sure? I asked. Positive, she said. Hurry. I found a pair of scissors and brought it back to her. I've never cut hair before, I said. What do I have to lose? She asked. It's not like I'm going to any fancy parties. Cut it real short. It'll be easier to keep clean that way. I didn't have the slightest idea what I was doing, but Mom cheered me on and reminded me to cut from the top as well as the sides and back. When I finished, Mom looked like a plucked chicken. No, wait, worse. She looked like a plucked chicken that hadn't eaten in months. The cut emphasized her cheekbones, and you could see how much weight she lost. Do me a favor, I said. Don't look in the mirror. Is that bad? She asked. Oh, well, it'll grow out. That's the great thing about hair. Do you want me to cut yours? No, I said. I've been thinking of letting my hair grow real long. Cornrows? She said. Those little braids, they don't need shampooing too often. Do you want me to braid your hair like that? I don't think so, I said, picturing me with cornrows and Mom with her new punk hairstyle. Mom stared at me and then she burst out laughing, and it was real laughter too. And before I knew it, I was laughing as hard as I had in months. I think I'd forgotten how much I love Mom. It was good to be reminded. I went to visit Mrs. Nesbitt this afternoon. Mom used to go almost every day, but she can't now, so I volunteered. She had her furnace going and her house was actually warm. I don't know how long the oil's gonna last, she said, but then again, I don't know how long I'm gonna last. I figure as long as I don't know which of us is going to go first, I might as well stay warm. You can move in with us, I said. Mom really wants you to. Oh, I know she does, Mrs. Nesbitt said. And it's selfish of me to stay here, but I was born in this house and I would prefer to die in it. Maybe you won't die, I said. Mom says we'll make it through. I believe you will, Mrs. Nesbitt said. You're young and strong and healthy, but I'm an old woman. I've lived a lot longer than I ever thought, and now it's my time for dying. Mrs. Nesbitt hasn't heard from her son and his family since the first tsunamis. There's no way of knowing if any of them are still alive. I guess Mrs. Nesbitt feels she would have heard from one of them by now if they still were. We talked about all kinds of stuff. Mrs. Nesbitt always has stories about Mom when she was growing up. She used to babysit Mom's mother, and I think I like those stories the best. I know Mom loves to hear them since she was so young when her parents died. I'll go back tomorrow. There's so little I can do, but visiting with her and making sure she's okay and then reassuring Mom about it is something. One good thing about Mom's sprained ankle, she's forgotten that I should be doing schoolwork. I don't think she's been pestering Johnny either. What a strange life this is. I wonder what it'll be like when things get back to normal, if they ever do. Food and showers and sunlight in school, dates. Okay, I never had dates, but if I'm going to dream, I might as well dream big. Peter managed to drop by. He checked Mom's ankle and agreed it was definitely getting better, but she still shouldn't put any weight on it. We left Mom and Peter alone for a while. He probably told her about diseases and accidents and plagues. He's entitled. I noticed how much older he's looking. I should have noticed it last week, but I was so crazy by the time I saw him, I didn't really see anything. It's not just that he's thinner. There's a sadness in his eyes. He seems weary. I mentioned that to Matt when we had a chance to be by ourselves. Well, he's dealing with illness all the time, Matt pointed out. Most of his patients are probably dying, and he's alone. He's divorced, and he has 2 daughters, but they both died. I didn't know that, I said. Mom told me, he said. I guess all the worrying Peter would do for his own family, he's doing for us. How am I going to feel when people that I love start dying? Matt and I went to the library today. It's only open on Mondays now. They don't know how much longer they'll stay open. As we were leaving, I saw Michelle Schmidt. I guess she hasn't vanished after all. I wonder how much I hear is true and how much is just made up. Maybe everything is fine with the world and we just don't know it. The joke would sure be on us if that's the case. It's funny how much I'm enjoying things these days. I think we all are. We're so used to worrying, we hardly even notice it. Actually, life is pretty cozy. We have the wood stove going full time because of Mom, so there's always a warm spot in the house. We spend our daytimes doing whatever needs to be done. Matt and Johnny are still bringing in firewood. Better too much than too little is Matt's mantra, and I can't argue with him. I'm doing whatever housework there is to be done. The worst is the clothes washing, which has to be done with as little water as possible, all by hand and very yucky. And visiting Mrs. Nesbitt every afternoon. I go after lunchtime so she won't try to feed me, although she does, but I always say, no, thanks. And I stay for an hour or so. A lot of times we hardly even talk. We just sit at the table and stare out the kitchen window together. Mom says she and Mrs. Nesbitt do the same thing, so I shouldn't worry. Mom now trusts me to go to the pantry and get to select our suppers. A can of this, a can of that. There's less food there than there was when I had my great chocolate chip feast. But as long as we don't eat too much, we'll be okay for a while. Ever since I saw Michelle Schmidt and realized she had never disappeared the way the kids at school thought she had, I feel like things really are better than we've been letting ourselves believe. So what if I'm deluding myself? Better to delude myself that things are okay than to delude myself that things are doomed. At least this way I smile. After supper, when we're all feeling good because we're not too hungry, we've taken to playing poker. I like 7-card stud the best. Donnie and Matt like Texas Hold'em, and Mom prefers 5-card draw. So dealer decides. Matt went into the attic and dug out a box of poker chips. Donnie is the best player, and as of tonight, I owe him $328,000 and a utility infielder. We're high stakes gamblers. I think even Peter's feeling better about things. He came over this evening, proclaimed Mom able to walk around again as long as she is careful and avoids stairs, and he didn't mention a single new way people are dying. We convinced him to stay for supper, and I put out an extra can of tuna. This is the first time I can remember when Peter came over and didn't bring us anything. So either he's run out of supplies or he's now officially family. I hope it's family, because I owe him $33,000 from a single hand of Omaha High. Well, Horton is on a diet, not of his choosing. Maybe it's the warmth of the wood stove, or maybe he just hopes we'll feed him, but he's very affectionate lately. He keeps Mom company all day, and in the evenings he sits on the most available lap or else by the wood stove. Matt brought down an old portable typewriter because Mom is thinking about writing down some of the stories she knows about her great-grandmother and her family. What life was like in this house before there was electricity and indoor plumbing. I like thinking about that. It makes me feel connected, like I'm a part of some bigger thing, like family is more important than electricity. The sunroom was just a porch back then, but I can imagine my great-great-grandmother's family sitting around in the parlor with the oil lamps glowing and the men tired out from chopping wood and the women tired out from doing the laundry. Actually, Mom says the family had 2 servants and one of them did all the laundry, but the women were probably tired out anyway. I wonder if they imagined the future. I bet they never could have guessed what things would be like today. So I guess even though they don't have much, they're very thankful. And even though for a minute there she didn't want to feel gratitude, she's feeling it now. All right, we'll post chapter 14 soon. Guys, have a great day.